Hello guys, welcome to today's class. This is the second session out of 3 sessions for the MAC3702 revision class. We're going to continue on the May-Jun 2020. I told them to give you some homework after this, but I didn't give you homework because I realized you guys were very busy in the assignment or with the assignment. So I didn't give you any homework to do. But after this week, I'll give you some question papers that you can tackle. I know some of you are going through the question bank. Just so you know, the question bank is past exam question papers. It is not like they went to go make a new questions from the for the question bank. The question bank is basically past papers. What they just did, well, this is what I think what they did, is that when they created the question bank, they basically took all the papers up until that point. So remember, MAC3702 started in 2014, I think. So I think there's, I think MAC3702 started in 2014. Yeah, in 2014, MAC3702 started. So basically, whenever they created the question bank, they just basically, at that point in time, they took all the past papers and they asked themselves the question, for WACC, what were the best WACC questions? For capital budgeting, what were the best capital budgeting questions? For mergers and acquisitions or valuation, what were the best valuation questions? So that's basically what they did. They cherry picked probably the good questions from each topic and created the question bank. They did not go and create new questions. Okay, so the positive of the question bank is twofold. One, it's past papers. Two, obviously not the full past paper, selected questions. And number two, you have the solution. So it is a good suggestion, but I don't think the question bank is something completely different. So when you do a past paper, you'll probably come across it, one of those questions and so forth. So you can decide what you want to do. Whether you want to do past paper, whether you want to do a question bank, that's fine. However, what is critical, that you have to keep at least one full question paper that you do start to finish and not work through the question bank. You need to practice writing an exam paper. So working through a question bank is not practicing writing an exam paper, that is just practicing whether you know the content. So at least keep one question paper that you haven't touched and write it from start to finish. Okay. So what I will do is see that you want to work through the question bank and that there's past papers, there's exam solutions. I will look through the question bank and I'll also tell you which questions to tackle. I never gave anything for this week because you're busy with the assignment. It's just going to be too much work. So now that the assignment will be handed in on Monday, after that, I will send you some questions that you can tackle based on what we have covered in the class. The assignment is a good question, okay? So take that as part of your practice. So consider the assignment as part of your practice if you have done the assignment on your own, right? So obviously you seek help, that's totally fine, but not if you just copied someone else's solution. But if you work through it and you discuss with others, that is part of learning. Discussing with one another, that is a good way of learning, because you will learn how someone else think, and it may open up your mind and vice versa. So discussing with others is a very good thing. That's part of your learning. But if you attempted the question, the assignment on your own, basically, then consider that as part of your practice for the exam. Okay, so don't underestimate that practice. I know it's stressful because you have to hand in, but it is part of your practice. So see it in that light. So today we're going to continue and we're going to do part B, and hopefully we get to part C as well. So part B is a weighted average cost of capital calculation. Part C is a production schedule. Okay, so we will basically, we're definitely going to work through, get through the WACC, and we're going to attempt to get through the part C, the production schedule as well. The next week, the last week, I will finish the paper. Ideally, I want you guys to work through at least 3 question papers besides the assignment. Okay, so this is one. So the one paper you're working with me, try to revise it. Then the other questions, I will select. I'm not going to give you a lot. I'll probably give you 1 of 20 marks, but it's for you to try and get through other questions. What you want to do, set up a schedule for yourself, right? Quick in Excel, mustn't take long. Just list the major topics. Okay, so maybe I'll set it up for you. Then you list the major topics. Then all you do is under each topic, you put the question you have covered. Okay, so you will put the number of questions you have covered. So we will have number of attempts or whatever number of questions, and then we'll put the question number. Okay, so try to do that. So then when you look at that schedule, you can see what you have done enough of and what you have not done enough of, so that you can attempt those. Remember, you want to get through all the topics, but certain topics count for most of the marks. So which are the typical topics that count for most of the marks? Doesn't mean it's always going to come in, but if it does come in, it is big marks, and it comes in often. It does not mean it's going to come in 100% of the time, but it does come in very, very often. And when it does come in, it is big marks. So it is capital budgeting, it is valuations, it is weighted average cost of capital. Then you have financial analysis, but for the past few years, financial analysis haven't been that big, but it does come in. With financial analysis, it is not only your normal ratios, it is also your non-financial ratios. But remember, if you can do your normal ratios, you must have if you do the normal ratios properly, you should have the ability to be able to work out non-financial ratios. Non-financial ratios can be anything that they give you, okay? So by being able to formulate a normal financial ratio, as a result of being able to do that, the skill you should have been able to develop is that you can work out any ratio, whether it's financial or non-financial, if they give it to you, okay? So those are generally the 4 big topics. Then you have 2 topics that don't always come in, rarely comes in, but if it does come in, it counts between 10 to 15 marks. So it'll either be a working capital type question, or it will be a source of finance type question. So you can see in your assignment, and in this question, they're testing working capital quite extensively. And in your assignment, you did a source of finance question. So if you can deal with that source of finance question and the working capital, then you've basically covered working capital quite extensively. I will still suggest working capital question. I will still give you a working capital question that you need to cover. It's in the question bank. Okay, so there's 2 that have come through in past papers. So I want you to cover those. I will select it for you, and then I'll tell you to cover it. But what you need to do, attempt to do the following after the exam. Ideally 20 marks, but at least 10 marks a day. So each day when you come home, take a break. I don't know what time you come home. Let's say you come home 5 o'clock, or let's say you come home 6 o'clock. Take a break till 7, 7:30, right? And just relax your mind and so forth. And either in that relaxation time or after the relaxation time for 15 minutes, you think about the topic you're going to cover. So what's important, select the question the day before the time. So you don't have to still select. You already know tomorrow I'm doing a 20 marker WACC question. So after your relaxation time, when you're rejuvenated, have something to eat, drink water, take a 20-minute nap, make sure you are rejuvenated. Don't come in with your, don't go to attempt the question with the fatigue of the work day. Get some, just rest a bit. So everyone to rest, right? 20 minutes, 30, not more than 90 minutes, because then you're going to end up sleeping. So let's say you come home 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock you start, or 7:30 you start. For the first 15 minutes, because you know already the question you're going to cover, just run through your mind the key issues of the topic. So you know, you're telling yourself, I'm going to cover a WACC question. In WACC, these are the key issues that I need to be able to be aware of. And if you did a previous WACC question and you marked yourself and you know of any mistakes you made, then remind yourself of those mistakes and remind yourself that you're not going to make the mistake in this question. So now when you start the question, what is fresh in your mind, the key issues and the errors that you're going to correct and you're not going to repeat. So that when you do the question, and then also tell yourself, the third thing is that even though you are not working under time pressure, you are still going to do this question as quickly as possible. Tell yourself that so your brain knows you want to work quickly, even though it's not the main objective. Why that's important, you'll end up working quickly, even though your focus is not working quickly, working under time. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So what you do every day, doing 10 to 20 marks. By the end of the, what you call it, if it's, let's say you're doing it over 6 days out of the week, 6 times 10 is 60 marks, right? And you're doing over a 2-week period, it is 120 marks. If you are doing 20 marks, it is 240 marks you are covering, which is 2.5 papers besides my paper. That's over enough. If you're finding yourself needing to do more than 5 question papers, then there is something fundamentally wrong from a content point of view. Then it's not question paper is not going to help you. It is the understanding. So then you must revisit that and then rather ask me if you need further detail on understanding those type of stuff. But after 3 papers, you must feel you must start feeling confident already. Okay, so just think about that. So if I'm you after today, or after your assignment is done, set up that table. I'll share one with you, and maybe pre-select your questions. Like I found it a bit too much to pre-select all my questions. So what I would do is pre-select a day before the time. So I know I'm only doing a 20 marker. If you are able to do a 50 marker, great. Don't do more than 50 marks. The chance of you doing 100 marker full question paper in one evening properly, unlikely. So don't do more than 50 marks. For me, if I'm coming home and I must do 50 marks at 7 o'clock, I feel demotivated, so then I'm not going to do it. So what I do, that's why I say 20 marks, because 20 marks is manageable. It is one question, and you need to be able to do one question because you have a responsibility on yourself, because you have a responsibility to your future self. In 3 years' time, you need to ask yourself, will your future self be happy with you for what you have done today? So you'd want your future self to be happy. So at least 20 marks. Remember, it's those small differences that add up, not one-off big events. It is those small, consistent acts that you do every single day that is going to ultimately make your future self the great you. Where one of big events is not going to make a great you, it's going to make probably a good enough you. But you don't want to be good enough. You want to at least be great. And then from there, you can be greater than great. So remind yourself, if you feel demotivated, like for me, 50 marks is too much. So I'll do 20 marks. And I'll just remind myself about my future self, who I want to be in 3 or 5 years' time. And what I'm doing now, is it going to be for the better? Is it in line with what my future? Is it in line in achieving my future self? So remember, just think about that. You literally have 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is. Just use another thing. When the results come out, picture yourself how happy you are, not how happy you're going to be, how happy you are. So put in the present time. So whenever you get the results, picture yourself there already, and the result is positive, that you have passed, you have now graduated, because most of you are ECP, so you have now graduated. Just picture the feeling you're going to have. Now, once you have that feeling, tell yourself, what is it going to take to actually experience it? And it's literally small acts, daily small acts. Don't overdo it, because then you're going to just run through question papers and not learn. So just remember that. Okay, so do 10 to 20 marks every single day. So first finish the assignment, get that out of the way. And then once the assignment is done, Monday, rest, Tuesday, kick in, where you have your every single day, 10 to 20 marks that you cover. But make sure you don't do every single day a WACC question, because that's not going to help. You need to spread it out. And that is why I had that table, so that when you have a look at the end of the week, see what you have covered enough and what you still need to cover. That's going to make a significant difference. But remember, apply those three things. Number one, before you start the question, remind yourself of the topic. Number two, remind yourself of any errors you have made so that you don't do it again. Number three, tell yourself you want to, each time you do a question, you want to do it as quickly as possible. The aim is not time, but tell yourself you want to do it as quickly as possible, so that when you come to doing a question under time pressure, you're already fast. Okay, so don't let that be the first time you want to be fast. So do as quickly as possible, but not having that your main objective. It's going to work really well. Trust me, I was not a great student. I was not a great student. In CTA, many subjects almost cost me to not pass. I was okay with tax, although tax is the subject I like the least, and I was okay with financial reporting. I was okay, right? Keyword, I was not good. So I was okay with tax, was okay with financial reporting. Financial management, my favorite subject. Well, it's now my favorite subject, MAC. My favorite subject, it's now my favorite. It was my favorite subject then, still my favorite subject now, but I wasn't good at that. It was one of the courses that could have cost me CTA. I got 50% on the dot. I believe that pushed me over. The other course that I struggled with is auditing, but I don't say I struggled with it because I didn't study auditing at all from the time I started auditing. Auditing, I think we do in second year, and then third year, and then from second year, I've never touched auditing. I went to the exam and just kind of memorized solutions and what you call it. As I'm walking to the exam, I'll read through a solution. So hopefully it comes in and I can answer. Struggled with auditing. CTA, I struggled with auditing because my approach was short term. And luckily I didn't pass auditing in CTA. I had to write a sub. And for me, that was a gift. I didn't feel bad. When I got it, when I got my results, I pass, auditing, fail, write a sub. Disappointed at that point in time, but I was happy because I knew if I passed it by luck, and I'm going to fail it in ITC. So now, if I'm making a sub, I have a second chance. So I studied auditing a bit better. I didn't study auditing like I would study accounting, but I studied auditing a bit better, and that helped me ultimately pass ITC in the end. As if I had to pass auditing first time, I wouldn't be a first time pass for ITC. I'd probably have to write ITC a second or third time. But when I studied auditing, I made sure that I wasn't studying auditing for my sub. I was studying auditing for the ITC. So I just changed my perspective and I reminded myself, how am I going to feel when I write ITC and I fail ITC because of auditing? I can change it now. I have a second opportunity to change it now. If I study auditing now properly, not for the exam, but for ITC, that means I need to study auditing in its entirety. I studied it properly in a different way as normal. I won't tell you the method because it's not a good method. And in the end, I always, when I felt I couldn't get through auditing, I sat in front of, in December, you're writing sub-exam. In December, it is the cricket time. I used to like cricket. So I sat in front of the cricket and studying auditing, because auditing was like slow death to me. So I couldn't just sit and study auditing. I needed something to occupy me. So I'm watching cricket and studying, but doing it properly. But then I take a 5-minute break, watch cricket, study for 5 minutes, and so forth. I needed something to get me going. But when I couldn't even do that 5 minutes, I just told myself, remember, when that ITC result come out, am I going to regret not putting in the effort now? And that kept me going. So when I went to write my sub-exam, I went with the intention to pass, but the ultimate idea was, I'm doing this properly, because when it comes to ITC, there's no time to restudy. I can only revise, and I don't want to fail ITC because of auditing. And that perspective changes. So use that same idea, that just picture that incentive in that will be coming, and that on its own, if your why is strong enough, that on its own will push you through. Okay, so take just what you call it. So I know the assignment is quite challenging, but just tell yourself you're not doing the assignment for hand-in purposes. Yes, one of the things you have to hand in so you can get the mark, but you're doing it as part of your preparation for the MAC3702, and you are passing MAC3702. So change the perspective. It's going to make the process a lot more sweeter. And when the end result come out, you're going to feel so satisfied because it wasn't an easy road. Just remember, I don't know how many of you are into sport, but if you watch a World Cup finals, a game that is one-sided is not as exciting for the fans, but a game that is quite close is exciting for the fans. But more important, watch the celebration of the players who win a tight game. When that final whistle is blown and it was a tight game, watch the celebrations of those that won, as opposed to watching the celebration of the players who won a game, a World Cup finals, that already knew the game was won. They're already 5-0 up or 3-0 up, and it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes left in the game. The sweetness is not the same. So just think about the struggles you're going through now. When you get that final result, that sweetness is going to be far more satisfying than going through an easy road. So look for ways to motivate yourself. Look for ways that inspire you. So don't feel this as an obstacle. In the end, that result is going to be so sweet. It's going to be so much better. So think about that and then plan. Remember, to get that to have that satisfying feeling, you need to put in the groundwork now. Small steps, not 50 markers, not 100 markers, 20 marks a day. That's all that is required, and you will succeed. So not you may succeed, and not actually you will succeed. That is a future tense. Put it in the present tense. You are succeeding. So think of it in that way. In the end, it's going to work out great. So that's what I wanted to tell you. That just work consistently. Okay, small, consistent steps. So now I'm going to jump into the WACC question, part B, and then we're going to try to attempt part part C as well. So let's have a look. What am I doing? They should see the scenario. I'm going to read part B. So I'm taking it you kind of have an idea of what part A is still all about in the scenario. So let's do part B. So part B is the repayment of debt. And this is going to cover required B, which is cover required B, which is weighted average cost of capital. So if we read the required, let's have a look. If we read the required, you can see that by using market values at 30th September 2019. So at 30th September 2019, that's your reference point, calculate the weighted average cost of capital, WACC, 20 marks. So as you can see, if this was me, I'd have done this paper over 5 days. I'd have done this paper over 5 sessions. This I'll use as 1. That's another 1 mark. That's another 1 day. This I'll do another 1 day. because I'm like, you know what, I compensated over there, so I'm going to do only this one. Then there I'm doing another one. Then there I'm going to do another. I'm doing over 5 days. It might seem little, but I'm making progress. Over a weekend, I may do a little bit more. Then again, the next week, another 5. That gives you literally a full 2 papers you're covering over enough. Then you do a third paper over under time pressure, plus this, plus your assignment. That's 5 question papers you're covering over enough. So don't think you're working too little. Just make sure you know what you are doing. You have a plan. You can see the questions that you are covering. So here we say calculate the weighted average cost of capital using WACC at 30 September 2019. So let's have a look at it. So repayment of debt. EFH has the following interest and dividend bearing facilities at 30th September 2019. Preference share capital, debentures, long-term loan, subordinated debt, and then short-term loan. So preference share capital, the 3 million preference shares were issued 3 years ago at a nominal cost of 605 per share, which bear a fixed dividend yield of prime plus 20%. Similar shares are estimated to be trading at 581. The redemption date of all these shares is 29 February 2025. Okay, so it's a redeemable preference share. Then we have debentures. So under debentures, we have a 10-year term debenture for 3.144 million. Were also issued around the same time as the preference shares above. Okay, so 3 years ago. So the 10-year term that was issued 3 years ago, that means the remaining period must be 7 years. The finance costs, net of tax on these debentures, amount to 249. The premium and the annual administration costs are waived, but there is a once-off administration fee of 15 million payable on 30th September 2025. Debentures structured in this manner incur interest at prime lending rate. Okay, so that's that you can see is the that is the market rate. Remember, when it comes to preference shares and when it comes to debt, the first question you want to ask yourself is what is given and what needs to be calculated. Generally, either the market value is given or the market rate. So whichever one is given, most likely the other one needs to be calculated. Now, when you want to calculate, before you start calculating, you must ask yourself another question. Is this instrument redeemable or non-redeemable? If it's redeemable, it means there is a specific repayment date. So when there is a specified repayment date, it's redeemable. Then the way you calculate it is either using the financial calculator or using a cash flow table. When I say cash flow table, like the way you set up a capital budgeting calculation, that is basically a cash flow table. So you either use a cash flow table or a financial calculator. You can always use a cash flow table, but you can't always use the 5 buttons on the financial calculator. I'll explain it to you when we cover one of these questions. If it is non-redeemable, meaning you can't pick up a specified date of repayment, then you use the perpetuity formula. The perpetuity formula is basically present value equals payment divided by I. And you can rearrange the equation to get I. Okay, but all that is on the platform. Okay, so then we have long-term loan. A loan of 875 was obtained on 2nd October, and its capital is repaid in 3 equal annual installments. The fixed 11% interest is also paid on the last day of each financial year. Similar loans bear an interest rate of about 9.5. Once again, similar loans, that is the market rate. So the market rate is given. So therefore, we most likely have to calculate the market value. And as you can see, there is a specified repayment date because the thing will be repaid in 3 equal installments. So we most likely use the financial calculator. Then we have subordinated debt. EFH also obtained an unsecured subordinated debt from African Rainbow Capital for 2 million on 10 October 2015 at an equivalent interest rate of prime plus 2. Similar subordinated debts are estimated to yield an interest rate of the prime lending rate. Okay, then we have the short-term loan. The short-term loan for 450 was obtained from Credit Suisse Bank at prime lending rate and is repayable on 28 February 2020. The loan was taken out to settle unexpected legal costs after the company was embroiled in a price fixing scandal. The company was forced to take out this loan due to low cash reserves at the time. The cash portion of the company has since improved as EFH closed the year with more than 300 million rand of cash and cash equivalents and a zero balance on its bank overdraft facility. The interest expense on this loan for the year ending 30 September 2019 was 26 million. Similar loans and overdraft facilities are generally priced around prime plus 1%. Okay, now remember, when we deal with WACC, the source of finance is only the source of finance that makes up the capital structure. So when you deal with WACC, the source of finance that we consider is only the source of finance that make up the capital structure. A company's capital structure is made up of long-term finance. The short-term loan is a short-term financing because, like you can see, they're telling you it is they only took it out for legal costs. Legal cost is not a long-term thing. It is something short-term. So therefore, it's something operational, something short-term, something part of working, maybe not working capital, but it's a short-term cost. So it's not part of your long-term sources of finance. As a result, that short-term loan we will not include. But you must tell them that you're excluding it because it is not part of the company's long-term finance. As a result, it's not part of the capital structure. As a result, we don't include it in the WACC calculation. So just be aware of that. That's how I see it. I can't see it being included in, even though there's interest and so forth, any loan is going to have interest. It does not mean it is part of your WACC calculation, okay? Okay, so that is it. Now remember, this is only debt. We mustn't forget share capital. Okay, so there are ordinary shares somewhere here. Can't remember where I saw it, but somewhere here, I think in part A, we kind of not part A, in the intro, we have some idea of what the ordinary shares are. Okay, so we'll use this and part D to get some of the information. So now I'm going to switch over and do the WACC calculation. Remember, when they say, dear student, please determine WACC, what must go through your mind? The WACC formula, the WACC table, and then identifying and jotting down the sources of finance. Okay, so that is part A. Then we go to part B. Just remind me at the end of the lesson, before we end of the lesson, I'll set up a table for you. Okay, so that you can use, I mean, you can do your own, but just to help you out, I'll tell you what I mean. Okay, so now we're gonna, so the first thing you want to do is write down the WACC formula. I mean, you can look at the solutions in the question bank if they put a WACC formula. If they don't, you don't have to. I like to write the WACC formula down. So I say WACC equals cost of equity multiplied by value of equity divided by value of equity plus value of debt plus cost of debt after tax multiplied by value of debt divided by value of equity plus value of debt. Okay. So just to remind yourself, when you calculate WACC, there are three things that you need. Number one, the source of finance. Number two, the weighting. Number three, the market rate, okay, the cost of finance. So this over here, cost of equity, that is the cost of finance for equity. This over here, cost of debt, that is the cost of finance for debt. So that's one of the items, the market rate. We have 1 minus t over here, whereas we don't have 1 minus t over there. Why do we have 1 minus t over here? Because SARS allows a tax deduction for interest. SARS does not allow tax deduction for dividends. Okay, so that is why we have 1 minus t. So here you can see cost of equity, cost of debt. That is one of the variables required, which is the cost of finance or the market rate. Then we said another one is the weighting. The weighting, as you can see, it is saying value of equity as a percentage of value of equity plus value of debt. Now, value of equity plus value of debt, that represents your total capital structure. That represents your long-term source of finance. So by saying value of equity as a percentage of total long-term finance, you are saying what is the percentage of equity. Okay, so what percentage of total finance is funded through equity? Over here, once again, value of equity plus value of debt, both of them are the same thing. It represents the long-term source of finance. It represents the company's capital structure. So by saying value of debt divided by total source of total capital structure, we are saying what percentage of our capital structure, what percentage of our long-term finance is funded through debt. So that is dealing with the weighting. Then the other thing is the source of finance. As you can see, this bracket represents equity, that bracket represents debt, so that represents your source of finance. The formula just generalizes equity into one and debt into the other, but when we set up the table, we must list the specific forms of equity finance, the specific forms of debt finance. Okay, so that formula may seem daunting because a lot of letters, but if you understand the crux of it, you will see that the formula is not as daunting as it may appear. Once again, that is only a perception. So when you look at it, it is perceived to seem difficult. But if you look closer, it is not actually that daunting, that complicated. So remember, lots of things is only what we perceive. So change your perception and things will become easier. Okay. And that is why, like for me, how I try to position things from an Eduon's perspective is to tell you that things are easy. It's not difficult. We are made to believe that accounting is difficult. It may be difficult here and there, but if you tell yourself it is easy, I call it different levels of easy. Easy, easier, and easiest. So how they would put it in a textbook or in another place, they would put it basic, intermediate, advanced. So for basic, I call that easiest. For intermediate, I call that easier. And for advanced, I call it easy. So change the perception. It might, so easy doesn't mean you're going to breeze through it. You're going to play it. You're going to have to apply some thought, but it's not what we think. And it's not as complex, right? So when I come across something very difficult, so what I find very challenging is when I read up on IT related stuff. So I need to know about IT some stuff because of like a platform and so forth. I struggle to comprehend things relating to IT. So what I've started recently, very recent, is because I thought, you know what, I tried to run this idea with Ideons. Why don't I apply to myself as well? So when I read on IT related things, I'll tell me it's easy, meaning it's advanced, right? But in my mind, I'm saying it's easy. So when I read through it, I know I'm going to struggle a bit, but I know it's easy. So I will be able to actually understand what is happening. And then if I stuck somewhere, I'll contact the IT guys to maybe clarify, or my cousin that they have some IT, have an IT background, I'll ask them. So so maybe apply, just like I've just been reading on perception. It's all about what you perceive. So change that perception, just make your own levels. Who said something is basic? Who said something's intermediate? Who said something is advanced? Make your own level. So my advanced is considered easy. Okay, so generally WACC would be easy. Okay, so see it that way, and hopefully just feeding your mind with a different way of thinking would actually be positive. You're not fooling yourself. You're just changing your perception. Okay, so just be aware of that. So now the first thing, set up, write down the formula. If you come across your solutions and they don't always write down the formula, or if there's no mark for the formula, no need to write down the formula. But in my approach, number one, write down formula. Number two, set up the table. So the table would be sources of finance or components of finance, doesn't matter, source of finance. Then we have market rate, and remember, we want it to be after tax. Then we want source of finance, market rate. Then we want, so remember, source of finance, that's the one. Market rates, that's the other. The third thing is weighting. But in most cases, the weighting is not given, and we need to calculate the weighting. And how we calculate the weighting, they told us to calculate the weighting using market value. And that is why we have a column for market value. If the weightings were given, if the target capital structure in its exact proportion is given, then there's no need to have the market value column. So be aware of that. The market value column is there only to calculate the weighting. So now we determine the weighting, and now we have source of finance, which is one of the components. Market rate, which is another component, and weighting, which is the other component. So that's the three components we need to determine WACC. Okay, so remember, A times B equals WACC. So WACC is basically A times B. So the source of finance, we know the debt, but we mustn't forget the equity. So we have ordinary shares, ordinary share capital. We have, what's the other one? It was preference shares. What was the other one? Debentures. So the next one, debentures. Debentures. Then I think we had, can just, if I'm making a mistake, can you just tell me? Then we had long-term loan, I think. And then we had a subordinated loan. Subordinated loan. Okay. And then it'll give me WACC. So this will give me total. So now we can go about dealing with each of those. So for each of these, we need market rate and we need market value, because so remember, we need three things: source of finance, market rate, weighting. The source of finance we have identified already. Now let's get the market rate. And then we need to get the weighting. But the way we get the weighting is to determine the market value. So basically, we need to determine market rates and market value. And then through the market value, we get the weighting. My approach is generally followed chronologically, right, in the order of the scenario. So under payment of debt, they gave us preference shares, debentures, long-term loans, subordinated. So we worked through that. They never gave us ordinary share capital in one particular area. So if you remember the scenario, ordinary share capital information was given under Part D as well as under the introduction. So we'll go there last to go get that information. Now I'll start off with preference shares and so forth, because it's all in that one section. So I'm going to go and start there. Okay. Okay, so there we go, back at 30 September 2019. I'm going to equal it over there. Okay, so when I have the answer, it will come through. Okay, so here's currently not. So when it is, what you call it, so now I know my answer is done. So this is answering the question. WACC at 30 September is, okay, and I equal it to that column, that cell. So now when the answer is done, and they see the answer. Okay, so so now I'm going to do, so I'm going to start with preference shares. Okay, so with preference shares, so remember, the one thing we want to do is determine what was given and then what needs to be calculated. Sometimes a given, it still needs to be calculated, but basically it's a basic calculation. Okay, so if we have a look at preference share capital, they say 3 million preference shares were issued 3 years ago at a nominal cost of 605. So the nominal value, the face value is 605, which bear a fixed dividend yield of prime plus 20 basis points. Okay, so remember, that is your coupon rate. The way you calculate payment is face value or nominal value times coupon rate. Similar shares are estimated to be trading at 581. So there you see similar shares, they're giving you the value. And then they say the redemption date of all these shares is 29 September 2025. Okay. So what is given? The market value is given. That similar thing, that is the market related number. So you need to ask yourself, is that market number the rate or is it the market value? So they're giving you a number, a value. So therefore we know it is the market value. So the market value is given. So basically we can plug that in, but it still requires some basic calculation. So the market value is going to be number of shares, share price. So this is the basic calculation. So it's in effect given, and this will give you market value. Okay, so this will give you market value. Market value. And if we go number of shares, they were given to 3 million. A good idea when it comes to management accounting is that highlight any number, whether it is given in digits, whether it's given in letters. So you see the 3 million was given in letters, in words. That's one of the important things to highlight. I just want to provide caution. I know some of you may have like CNA in your pencil bag, right? So try not to use the whole of CNA. Just use one or two highlighters, and make sure the purpose of highlighting is that you're highlighting important things. I've seen over years many question papers where when it's done highlighted, in my mind, it appears that the unhighlighted is the important aspect, because basically the whole paper is highlighted and only a few things is unhighlighted. So when I look at that paper, they're telling me the unhighlighted is actually important. So just so if you get what I'm trying to say, highlight sparingly, right? Highlight things that is going to be important. But one suggestion, like highlight your numbers, whether it's digits or letters, because as you can see, the Solana is wrong. Some stuff you may have to find elsewhere. So at the bottom, maybe you've highlighted the ordinary shares, then we're easy to spot it if your highlighting was sparingly. Okay, so just be aware of that. So 3 million, 1, 2, 3, and then we have share price. They gave it to us as 581. So the market value is going to be number of shares times share price. There's going to be one important thing to take note of here, and I'm going to mention it in the next part. Okay, something very important that can mess up your whole calculation, and that is something you must already decide long before your exam. You decided, so you can decide it right here today what you're going to do, and you must do it consistently in every question, unless it is easier otherwise. I'll explain it now. Okay, so here we have market value. So ordinary shares, market value, it's going to be that amount. I'm going to tell them they can find it in working one. Okay, now we're going to go to working two. So the market value was given. That means we need to determine the market rate or the cost of finance. Now, when we deal with preference shares and debt, we ask ourselves, is it redeemable or non-redeemable? If there is a specified date of repayment, it is redeemable. If there's no specified date of repayment, it is non-redeemable. So there is a specified date of repayment, so it is redeemable. One of two ways, either use a financial calculator or use a cash flow format. Like I said, the cash flow format can always be used, but if you can use a financial calculator, use a financial calculator. When I say financial calculator, I'm referring to those 5 buttons on top. If you use a cash flow format, you can still use the financial calculator, but you can't use the 5 buttons. You'll have to use the cash flow button, the cash flow format button on the financial calculator. So just be aware of that, okay? So in this case, I can use the financial calculator. I'll tell you when you can and when you can't in the next point. So so over here, when we use a financial calculator, we want to work out I. So I is the unknown. To get I, we need the other 4 items. So we need present value, we need future value, we need PMT, and we need N. Present value we have calculated in working one. Okay, so present value I've calculated in working one. Now we need future value. Remember, for X, even on the financial calculator, we always just keep the present value negative. Okay, so we make the present value negative, future value and PMT will be positive. So what's important to note, future value and payment must be in the same direction. Present value and future value must be in the opposite direction. So just to keep things consistent and easy and avoid thinking, I always just make present value negative and I keep future value and PMT positive. Okay, so value just so I don't have to think about it. So now I go to, I need my future value. So remember, the redemption date of all the shares is 29 September 2025. So we're going to redeem. So remember, your future value is nominal value or face value plus a premium or minus a discount. There's no premium, there's no discount. So basically the future value is simply going to be your nominal value, face value, same thing. So my nominal value is 605 times 3 million shares. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there we go. Payment is calculated is your dividends. Okay, so remember, payment is your dividends. So it's important to know that payment is the dividends. So one of the ways, and one of the typical ways to calculate the dividend is saying nominal value times coupon rate. We know the nominal value is our face value. So remember, if your face value includes a premium or a discount, then you can't use the face value as is. Okay, so because our face value, because our future value is only made up of the face value. So that's why I'm just making it equal to. But if the future value includes a premium or a discount, then you can't simply say future value times the coupon rate. So remember, the formula is face value or nominal value times coupon rate. In this scenario, my future value is equal to my nominal value. So that is why I'm just making it equal to that, times my coupon rate. What is my coupon rate? It is prime plus something. Can I remember? Prime plus 20 basis points. So if I just go check for me, I think prime is 10.5. Just check for me, please. 10.5% plus 20 basis points. The way you get the basis points, you say 20 divided by 100. So it is 0.2. Okay, so plus 0.2%. Okay, just check if I use 10.5 for prime. Just confirm. I can't remember. I'm just like assuming it's 10.5. So just look at part D and then tell me. 10.25. Okay, prime is 10.25. Okay, so there we go, and then we get N. Now we are at 30th September 2019. The thing comes to an end in 2025, 30 September 2025. What is N? N is the remaining number of years times the number of payments or the number of compound periods during each year. So for us, it's only one payment period, right? It is once a year. So basically it is remaining number of years times number of payments per year or number of compounding periods per year. So there's only one payment period per year. So therefore, N is equal to the remaining number of years. So the remaining number of years is, 30 September 2019, so 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. So it is 6. So it is the remaining number of years 6 times the number of payment periods or the number of compounding periods per year, which is 1. So there we go. So I is going to equal. So if I want to say rate open. So they want number of periods, payment, number of periods per payment period, present value, future value. Okay. Okay, so what do they want? N, then they want PMT, then they want present value, then they want future value, and then they want when cash flows take place, end of the period or beginning of the period. Excel and Google Sheets, end of the period represent, you must make it 0. And then in Excel and in Google Sheets, they always want you to do a guess. Okay, they always want you to make a guess. When you calculate a rate, you must put in a guess. So what I do, my guess, I always just make it 10% or 1%. Why? I don't want to think in the exam. I don't want to be thinking. It's only a guess. Which guess I make has no bearing on the actual calculation. So I always just make it 10% or 1%. So here I'm just make it 1%. Okay, so that's my guess. So the coupon, so the I is going to be 11. So I'm going to, sorry, I know what I'm doing. So I is going to be 11%. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make this make it like that. Okay, so two spaces. So I'm going to tell them they can go look at working 2. Okay, so now there we have preference shares sorted. Now I'm going to do debentures, long-term loan, and subordinated loan. So for debentures, let's say there's a 10-year term debenture for that amount, were also issued around the same time, 3 years ago. Okay. The finance cost of these debentures amounted to 249. The premium and the annual administration costs are waived, but there is a once-off administration fee of 15 million rand payable on 30th September 2025. Debentures structured in this manner incur interest at the prime lending rate. Always identify what is given. They told us that the prime lending rate is given, and we confirmed it was 10.25%. 10.25%. So all we need to calculate is the market value. Now, when this is a 10-year loan. They took it out 3 years ago. So there's 7 years remaining. Remember, 2025 ends in 6 years' time. So there's 7 years remaining, so we must run to 2026. So in this case, I'm going to set it up using a cash flow table, and then I'm going to tell you why. So working 3, I'm going to have details. I'm going to have year 0, and then I'm going to have year 1, year 2, up until year 7. So just to maybe put it over here so you can see. (2019, 2020). Okay. So it's a 10-year loan. Let me just see if I'm reading this correct. Yeah. Okay. So there's a 10-year loan. We took out 3 years ago. So therefore, the remaining number of periods must be 7. Okay. So it comes to an end in 2026. So what you need to know that there's an annual interest payment. There is the redemption amount, redemption value, and then there's also the administration value and admin costs. Okay, so what you must know, when can you use the 5 buttons and when can you not? The moment you cannot use the 5 buttons of the financial calculator, you'll have to use a cash flow function on the financial calculator. In order to do the cash flow function on the financial calculator, you're going to have to set up this cash flow table. Okay. So the only time you can use the 5 buttons of the financial calculator is if the future value, the redemption value, happens at the end of the period, right? So if you have only a lump sum at the end of the period, it doesn't have to be there. There's either no lump sum or there is a lump sum. And the lump sum can only happen at the end of the period. So if you have a lump sum, the lump sum can only happen at the end of the period. And then if you have a payment, the payment has to be a fixed regular payment for the entire period. Okay, so in this case, we have a lump sum and we have a payment. The payment is a fixed regular payment happening every year, the same time for the 6 years. Okay, that's the payment. The lump sum, which is the future value, is happening at the end of the period. So only if those conditions are in place can you use the 5 buttons. Whereas in this case, we have a payment. Let me just check the payment info quickly. Yeah, so we have a payment of 249, and the payment is happening every single year at the same time for the entire period. So the payment meets the criteria to use the financial calculator. But now we have a lump sum. There are 2 lump sums, the redemption value as well as the admin. The redemption value is happening at the end of the period, but where does the admin cost happen? The admin cost is not happening at the end of the period. The admin cost is happening in 2025, a year before the end of the term. So because of that, we can't use the five buttons on the financial calculator. We have to use the cash flow table. Okay, so that is basically when. So if you have a lump sum payment, the lump sum payment have to happen at the end of the period. If you have a payment, the payment have to be a fixed, consistent amount happening at the same time for the duration of the term. So here the admin cost threw us off. The admin cost is happening in 2025. So we have to use a cash flow format. Okay, so just be aware of that. So now I can do this. So now I can do this. So here we have net cash flows. So the discount rate, so the discount rate, so remember in a WACC, in a capital budgeting calculation, which is an investment decision, we use the discount rate is your WACC. Here we're working out debt, which is a source of finance. So it's a financing decision. It is not an investment decision. For an investment decision like capital budgeting, we use the WACC rate. In a financing decision, the discount rate is the cost of finance. Okay, so the cost of the market rate cost of finance. So in this case, the market rate cost of finance was given to us as the prime lending rate, which is 10.25. So distinguish between a financing decision and an investment decision. For the financing decision, your cost of finance, your discount rate is the cost of finance relating to that source of finance. Not any cost of finance, it must be the market rate relating to that source of finance. In an investment decision, in capital budgeting, the discount rate is not the cost of finance, but rather the cost of capital, which is WACC. Okay, so this will give us the present value, or this will give us NPV, present value. When we deal with an investment decision, we call it NPV. When we deal with a financing decision, we call it NPC, net present costs. Okay, so NPC. If you call it NPV, they're not going to mark you wrong. I just want you to know, when do they use the term NPC or NPV? Okay, so now we can plug in the numbers. Hey, well done, Kelsey. Correct. This should actually be 10.25 because we're using an after-tax rate. Okay, so it needs to be 10.25 after-tax rate. Thanks for pointing that out. So yes, it should be an after-tax rate. So please, you see, I made the mistake, and I'm the teacher over here, so I made the mistake. Keep remind yourself that for debt, it must be after tax. So remember, preference shares is considered debt, but from SARS's perspective, preference share still pays a dividend, so therefore there's no tax deduction. But for debt, you're paying interest, so there will be a tax deduction, so it must be the after-tax rate. Okay, so thank you, Kelsey, for pointing that out. Okay, so now, so now we're going to do interest. Okay, so the interest, they told us the after-tax interest is 249 million. So this is the second thing I wanted to tell you. You must decide now already, not in the exam, now already, how you're going to deal with numbers. So here they're giving numbers not in its full, right? So it's okay to use it not in its full if all the numbers is given in the same format, but not all the numbers are given in the same format. So what I do when all the numbers are not given in the same format, I use the actual number. So they told us it is 249 million, right? 249 million. So I'm going to convert this into its full number. I'm going to multiply it by 1 million. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what I do, I always just convert into its full because I don't want to be struggling on trying to think, is this the right format or not? So I just convert into full. The only time you can't do this is they tell you to work in rand millions. They didn't tell us that. So I'm going to work like this. Okay. Also, what's important to take note, if all the numbers is consistently done in rand millions, then there's no need to do the conversion. But even in that case, I do the conversion because I just feel more comfortable. I know what I'm doing. I don't want to be thinking of conversions in my head. So I always just convert to the full proper number. Okay. Redemption value. The debentures of 3 will issue at the same time. Finance costs. Okay. The redemption value will happen in 2025, 3141. Equal to 3144, also million. So I'm going to multiply by 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I don't want to have problems, so that is why I just do this. Okay, and then the admin cost was 15 million. 15, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now I can work out. There's other ways to do this as well. You can use a financial calculator, but there's a multiple step. So I want to avoid multiple steps, so I set it up this way. Okay, so now I can work out NPC. There's no formula NPC. I don't think there's a formula NPC. See, there's no formula NPC. The formula is NPV. Okay, we just call it NPC because it is relating to payments, not making money, but paying money. So NPV, the first thing they want is the rate. The next thing they want is the various numbers. So cash flow 1, cash flow 2, cash flow 3, cash flow 4, cash flow 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so my NPV is 3.2. So there we go. So now I can plug that in. C36. C36 working 3. C36 working 3. C36 working 3. Okay, now I can do my long-term loan. Now I can do my long-term loan. A loan of 871 was obtained on 2nd October 2018. Okay, 2nd October 2018. So that's the beginning of year 0. Okay, and its capital is repaid in 3 equal annual installments. Okay, the fixed interest rate is also paid on the last day of each financial year. Similar loans be an interest rate of 9.57. What was given? The rate. So the rate is 9.57. 75. Okay. 9, let me just see what's happening. 9.75%. Okay. But remember, once again, it must be an after-tax rate. So multiply by 0.72. Okay, so that is given. No, nothing complicated. Now we can work out the market value. I just want to see what they wanted over here. So a loan of 875 was obtained, and its capital is repaid in 3 equal annual installments, the fixed interest. Okay, so I will just set up a financial calculation as well. So working for, I set up the same format. So we're going to have the same format. So working 1, working 2. So there's no admin costs over here. So I'm going to delete that. So remember, the interest payment is, we have to work this out now. So just so you, if I want to do if I can just say a normal amortization table quickly so you can see what we are doing, okay? Discount rate is going to equal 7.02. Okay, so that's our discount rate. So I'm going to remove this. So just so you can see the picture. So if we have here, okay, so the year it was, so 2nd October 2018 is the same thing as 30th September 2018. Okay, so 2nd October is more or less the same thing as 30th September 2018. Okay, I'm just for ease of explanation, and it will be 30th September 2019. Okay, so here we go. Specific to the loan, right? So this is period 0, period 1, period 2, period 3. Okay, so remember the payment. There was a payment of the same, was paid in 3 equal annual installments. Okay, so 3 equal annual installments. So what is the payment would be, let's take this. So if I have opening balance payment, this would be interest in spelling interest, and then this would be closing balance. Okay. Okay, so just have a look at this. Our opening balance, how much did we take out from the bank? We took out 871.5 million. So I'm going to say 871.5 million, so I'll multiply by 1 million. 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there we go, 8.75 million. The payment was made in annually in arrears in equal installments. So there will be no payment at the beginning on year 0, right? There's no payment, only making the first payment a year earlier. So the payment is basically that divided by 3. So the first payment happened on 30 September 2019, and then the last 2 payments is going to happen over there. Okay, so that is why I wanted to show you over here. So redemption value repayment. Okay. So here you can see we are in 30 September 2019. That is year 0. It's a past cash flow. So the only cash flow we have is basically 2020 and 2021. Okay, so very important to take note. No interest would happen over there because interest is only paid annually in arrears. Okay, on day 1, no interest is paid, but then we pay interest over here. Interest was paid, what did it tell us? 11%. Okay, so interest is equal to 11%. But because our discount rate in our working for is after tax, I need to make the payment also after tax. I multiply it by 0.72. So this over here, so because this is after tax, the interest over here must also be after tax. So what will the interest be? So remember, interest is going to be opening balance multiplied by the discount rate. Okay, so opening balance multiplied by the discount rate. So that will be my interest over here. My closing balance, it is opening balance minus payment plus interest. Okay. Let's see quickly. What do we do? A loan was obtained in October and its capital is repaid. The fixed interest also paid as a paid. Okay, so this must be that minus. So all the stuff is paid. Okay. So we are repaying interest 871. Something not working out over here, but just leave it for now like that. Oh, this is the problem. This is the problem. So remember the rule when it comes to interest. Interest is charged on the outstanding capital balance. Okay, so interest is charged on the outstanding capital balance. So that is the important aspect. So we will have that interest that we have to pay, and we will have that interest that needs to be paid. Okay, so just take note of that. So what we need to understand is that the present value currently is going to be the 575. So what's important to take note, that interest is, I want to see if I read that correctly quickly. So a loan of 875 was obtained on 1 October and its capital is repaid in 3 equal installments. Okay, so in 3 equal installments, there's the 3 equal installments. Okay, what's important to take note is that interest is paid, is calculated on the outstanding capital balance. The outstanding capital balance in year 1, it is that. In year 2, it is that. In year 3, it is that. So just be aware. Okay, so so that's important to take note how we calculate interest. Okay, that is how I would do it. We can't really calculate it in terms of what is going up is this is going to add up to the interest that we paid. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so just be aware, interest is always calculated on the outstanding capital balance. You can't calculate interest only on the 871 because we're paying an amount every year. So therefore, what we owe the bank is less. So the interest that the bank can charge us has to be less. Okay, so just be aware of that. So this over here is 575, which is C45. So over here, we'll have working for. Now we come to the last one, which is a subordinated loan. So under the subordinated loan, it's still under preference shares and debt. So when you deal with preference shares and debt, what do we do? You identify what is given, and then you calculate what is not given. So here they say, if H also obtained an unsecured loan from African Bank for that's basically 2 billion on 10 October 2015. Okay, read it as 30th September 2015 at an equivalent interest rate of prime plus 2. Similar loans are yielding a prime lending rate. So what is given? What is given? The market rate is given. So the market rate for such a loan is prime. Prime is 10.25%. Remember, because it's debt, we must take an after-tax rate because interest is deductible. Okay, so just take note of that. So 7.38. Now we can calculate the market value. Now we can calculate the market value, working 5. Okay, so if we have a look, we took out a loan, a subordinated loan from African Bank on 10 October at an equivalent interest of 10.25, the subordinated deal, okay, at prime. They never gave us a redemption date. They never gave us a redemption date. That implies we must assume it is a non-redeemable debt. I don't see any repayment, and I don't remember anywhere in the scenario. So because they're not giving you a redemption date, you can only assume there's no redemption date. As a result, we must use the formula for non-redeemable, which is the perpetuity formula. Now, the perpetuity formula goes as follows. Present value equals PMT divided by I. Okay, if you wanted to, just as a side, if you wanted to calculate I, you rearrange that equation that says I equals PMT divided by present value. Okay, so if you wanted I using the perpetuity formula, use the exact same formula, just rearranging the equation. So we want the present value. We can calculate PMT, and we were given I. I is at 7.38 after tax rate. Okay. So where was that now? It is subordinated 7.38. So it is given. Now we can calculate PMT. Remember, PMT is the interest cost. So the interest cost is calculated as outstanding loan multiplied by, so nominal value multiplied by coupon rate. The nominal value is at 2 billion, and the equivalent rate is prime plus 2. Okay, so prime plus 2. So what we're going to do, it is going to be nominal value times coupon rate. Okay, but now remember, because our I is after tax, we must multiply it also by 1 minus T. If I is after tax, PMT must be after tax. Okay, so it is going to be 2010. But we need it in, maybe if I just work out this payment separately, so it's easier to follow. So to get PMT, we need face value, and we need coupon rate, and then it must be an after tax. Okay, then tax. PMT, I'm going to put it here after tax. So it's easier to follow. Okay, so the face value is given to us as 2010, but we want it in full numbers, so I'm multiply by 1 million, 123,123. Coupon rate was given to us as 10.25 prime plus 2%. Okay, so prime plus 2%. And then tax is going to be 28%. Okay, so now we can work out this PMT. So I'm going to copy this out, plug it over there. Okay, so nominal value or face value multiplied by coupon rate multiplied by 1 minus the tax rate. So PMT is that amount. So now I can just say equal to PMT. Now I can work out my present value. What is my present value? Present value is PMT divided by I, and that gives me whatever it gives me. Okay, so this gives me 2.4 billion. Face value is 2 billion, more or less. Okay, so this is C55. So if I go over here, equals C55. So there we go. Now we must do ordinary share capital. If you go to part D, so I remember this. So if I go to part D, they said, oh no, not that. The prime lending rate is 10.25 and the cost of equity is 15.2%. If you see over here, they're saying EFH have an authorized shares of 840. Okay, so 15.2 and authorized shares of 840. Okay, so this here is given 15.2. So there we go. Now I'm going to just work out the market value, which is going to be under working 6. Okay, so working 6. So in the scenario, they gave us the number of shares. In the introduction, they gave us the number of shares that are in issue. They told us 50% of authorized shares are in issue. And they also gave us a share price. So I know number of shares in issue, number of shares in issue. I also know share price. And that will give me market value of ordinary share capital. Market value of ordinary share capital. Okay, so this will give me market value. So number of shares in issue, they're telling me authorized is 840 million. So 840 million. So 123 times 50%. Okay. So that tells me the number that I have. Now I'm going to just go fetch the share price. The share price was given somewhere in the scenario in the introduction. Okay, so in the introduction, somewhere over here. So that is why I want to highlight this in an exam. Okay, so in an exam, I want to highlight that. So remember, they tell you the company share price was trading at 598 on 1 October 2018. At the start of the financial year, but it lost 52% by the end of September 2019. Okay, so now I can go work that out. So share price 1 Oct 18. What was the number now? 45.98 equal to 45.98. That was cents. So to convert it into rands, we just divide by 100. So it's 45.98. It lost 45%. Okay, no. It lost 52%. Okay, so I'm just going to say remaining value is 50. It is equal to 100% minus 52%. So the remaining value is 0.48. So therefore, share price 30th September, share price 30th Sep 19 would be 48% of October's price. October's price was 45.98. What is remaining is only 48%. So the current share price is 22 Rand. What did I just do over here? Oh, yes, right. 22.07. So this is C70. So if I go over here, oh no, sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. This here is over there, 2207. Okay, so we're going to say that multiplied by 2207, which will give me that amount. Okay, so this here is C66. C66. Okay, so now I can work the weighting. The weighting is equity as a percentage of total sources of finance as a percentage of our capital structure. So now I can just drag this down. Okay, and now we can work out WACC. WACC is going to be A times B times 100. Okay, there we go. Can just drag this down. So WACC is 11.98%. 11.98%. Okay, so WACC is 11.98%. That's my answer. Just one more thing. Just tell them short-term loans is not included in WACC as it is not part of long-term finance. Okay, why are you telling this? Because it is funding and operational costs. So not funding long-term investments. Okay, so there we go. So now we're telling them why we're leaving out short-term loans. I just leave out, I don't know what to do with it. I'm leaving out, this is not long-term finance. Therefore, it is not part of WACC. So that is basically how I would have gone through this question. And that is what I think the answer is. I mean, I don't know if I made any errors, but that is what I think the answer is. Okay. Do you have any questions on your guys' side? Any questions on your guys' side? Let's go.
Can you explain the preference shares again? I just wrote it down, sorry. Can you explain the premium or discount?
Okay.
You said it will affect the payment.
Yes.
Something like that. Can you explain that again?
I'll explain that now. That's fine. Fahim, Kelsey.
No questions, Faiz.
Okay. Kelsey.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Laika. Bungani.
Could you please repeat the last part for market rate after tax for the subordinated loan?
Okay. Prashni. Okay. So there was 2 questions. So let's quickly go back. So to answer Kayla's question, when you work out PMT, okay, your payment is face value or nominal value. Face value, nominal value, same thing. Face value times coupon rate. Okay, so remember, payment for preference shares is dividends. Payment for loans is interest. Now, a typical way to calculate the interest and the typical way to calculate interest and to calculate dividends for preference shares is face value times coupon rate. You must read the scenario carefully because there could be other things, okay? Other ways to calculate the dividends. Now, this is a typical way. Now, if you look at my thing, I just said future value times the coupon rate. So what I'm trying to tell you, when you look at this, solution, what you must know, I only use the future value because the future value is equal to the face value. I would not make my formula equal to the future value if the future value included a premium or a discount. Because remember, the future value is equal to the following: face value plus a premium. Or if there's a discount, minus a discount. Now, because there's no premium or no discount in this question, the future value is only made up of the face value. So I just said future value times coupon rate. So what I was trying to make clear, that you can't simply say PMT is equal to face value, future value times coupon rate. You must have a look what the future value is. If the future value is only the face value, then you can say equal to that. But if it is not, then you must type out the future value over here. You must replace C26 and physically type out what the face value is. So I hope that that answers your question, Taylor.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, if it says 12% preference shares, yeah, the 12% is a coupon rate. That's correct. Okay, so Bongani, Bongani, where is the one you want me to cover?
The one for subordinated loan.
Subordinated loan, that was this over here. I think this was, let me just see what was subordinated loan. No, this was subordinated. Yeah, okay, so this was a subordinated loan. So what about it?
I want to check why do we have a same
interest rate.
Yes, like the
So
one for
over here.
the long-term loan.
Yeah, so over here, the long-term loan, they said, no, not the long, so as the debenture. Okay, so the debentures, it says debentures structured in this manner incur interest at a prime lending rate. So they're telling us the market value of a debenture is the prime lending rate. Subordinated loan, similar subordinated debt facilities are estimated to yield an interest at the prime lending rate. So they both, the market rates for both of them is the prime lending rate, and that is why the cost is the same. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Then another one for the weighting. If
Yeah.
I'm just recalculating the weighting, it's different, the one that you have.
I mean, this weighting over here.
Yes.
So whoever you have a different.
Yes, I have a different.
Okay, let me just see. How are you calculating it?
I'm using a calculator, but it's supposed to have a difference of 1% or 2%.
Yeah, so it's fine. Just roundings. What you
Okay.
look, so what you goes in forever and ever. Your calculator is rounding off to 2 decimals. Excel and Google Sheets rounds off till the end of time. So there will be a rounding difference. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to show you one thing that you can use. You can just go fetch it over here. And so just to show you, because I'm gonna have a call now in the next 7 minutes. Yeah, they're gonna call me now. So just so you can have a look, you will have the major topics. Okay, you'll have major topics. Then we'll say Q1, Q2. So I just make a list of up until Q5. Okay, if you're doing more than this, then I don't know. Okay, oh, what did I just do? Undo. Okay, so here we list the topics. So the big topics, WACC, capital budgeting, valuations. Okay, then you have, so valuations. Then you have financial ratios. Financial ratios. Then you have other smaller topics, source of finance, working capital, strategy, and risk management. And then you have, what's the last one? So another one, dividends. Okay, these are the typical. I mean, you can see other stuff. Okay, so these are the basic, but then you want to maybe split out a little bit further. So especially for valuations. Okay, so for valuations, you want to split it out a little bit further. So under valuations, you can have, you can have free cash flow. You can have dividend growth. You can have this other one, price earnings. Okay, so now I'm having, so now when I do my questions, I want to be able to tick off which ones are. So so for example, you did valuation, and let's say all the valuations, let's say you did 5 valuations, and then all the valuations come on a dividend growth model. You can see you wasted your time because you did 5 questions for valuations. It looks a lot, but all of them are dividend growth. So basically, when you do 3 questions, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. You understand? So that's what you want to do. So as you do, you type in. So for example, I'll type in here, May-Jun 2020. Cool, happy with that. Capital budgeting, first question, May-Jun 2020. So now I know we have covered it, and I know which papers I've covered, and I know what you call it. Okay, so that is basically what you want to try to do. Like if you're doing the question bank, they may not know which papers come from, but like for example, in capital budgeting, a good question on capital budgeting in what you call it is Sunrail, right? So now I write it down. So when I'm putting the company name, I know it's question bank. When I do the exam, I put in the exam paper. So that gives me an idea, right? And that's how you can basically break it down. So you can even break, for example, capital budgeting between payback, discounted payback, NPV, but you don't have to because NPV is the common one. And IRR, and then for WACC, you may want to say, okay, for ordinary share capital, whether you did dividend growth model, whether you did CAPM, things like that. So that is kind of what you want to be able to pick out. So when you look at this, it gives you a good idea of how you are faring in terms of what you have covered. The big topics, you can at least cover 3. Okay, the smaller ones, 2 is fine. And that is basically, so before each day, you want to already pre-select the question you want to cover, so that when you start so let's say tomorrow you're doing a question, so you pick a question today, a 20 marker, and then you say, so when tomorrow comes, before you start, you apply the 3 things. Number 1, a quick overview in your head, a quick overview of capital budgeting. Number 2, any mistakes you remember making, and you remind yourself not to make the mistake. And number 3, you tell yourself, I'm going to work as fast as possible, because then you're training to do. The objective is not time, but by telling yourself you want to work fast, you're going to be working faster, and that's going to speed up the time that you take. Apply those, and then if you lack motivation, remember that end goal. Feel the feeling now of how you're going to feel when you pass. So then remind yourself to actually let the feeling to materialize. What is the small actions I need to do now up until the exam? Because remember, once the exam is written, there's absolutely nothing you can do. All you can do is wait. So the question is, what can you do now while you can do something? Okay, so I'm going to end over there. Someone's going to call me now in the next 1 minute. I want to please try and practice and do the small actions that will end up having a significant impact. So you can practice this. I will send this out later today, and then you can continue. I think you're still busy with some of your assignments. I'm looking through the assignment, but I'm not going to promise anything. But I am looking through the assignment. If I do come somewhere, then I will share some stuff with you guys. But I don't want to promise anything. Don't bank on me giving something. Okay. So thank you guys. I hope you have enjoyed the lesson, and I hope you found it very beneficial. Okay. I'll see you guys next week.